Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Beautiful day out here. I'll go ahead and flip the camera so you can see this gorgeous view. Good morning, Stu. Yeah, happy International Day of Forests. I believe it was yesterday, actually, but it counts today too. And how fitting that we are, I mean, it doesn't look like it right now, but we are visiting a forest. For those of you who have never been here or didn't see the title, we are here at Elfin Forest, which is in Los Osos, California. You can see that we're on the south side of the bay here. It's a little hard to see because you can't see much of the water here, but this is the Morro Bay estuary. And then in the distance you can see some of the waters of Morro Bay. Good morning, Jean. See the beautiful hills stretching all the way to the east. Actually, you've got a pretty good shot. You can see them stretching all the way. Probably not to as far as San Luis Obispo. But you can definitely see the string of Morros here. It's the furthest one I see, hidden back there. Stringing all the way west. This one right here is Cerro Cabrillo, Black Hill. For those of you who've come to these MPA Mondays in the past, we've gone to the top of Black Hill and seen a different vantage point of Morro Bay and its estuary. And then of course the furthest west one that we can see, Morro Rock. Beautiful views over here. I'll go ahead and flip and introduce myself. Good morning, friends. Welcome here to beautiful Elfin Forest. We're here in Los Osos, California. And this area is actually a partnership owned both between the San Luis Obispo County Parks as well as California State Parks. And it's a beautiful area. I believe it's 80 acres, and it actually helps to, as you'll see as we walk through, we're going to go through a couple different habitats if my connectivity can hold up under the forest canopy. But it holds and protects a lot of unique plants here and unique animals. So there's this space, even though it may not seem very big, it actually is home for lots of different plants and animals and helps to protect them. And you can see, I'll flip the camera again in just a moment, there are some amazing views here. So you've got some panoramic views of Morro Bay. You can even see the sand spit here. Some gorgeous views behind me. All of these beautiful hills. So good morning everyone just joining. My name is Robin. I work for California State Parks. We're here for yet another MPA Monday, which simply just is a way for us to celebrate marine protected areas every week. And marine protected areas are much like parks, like the park that I'm walking through right now, except they're underwater. These are like underwater parks, spaces set aside in the ocean that are protected, not only for the animals to thrive, to grow in abundance, to revive ecosystems, but also for us to enjoy. So just like this park that we get to enjoy today, these MPAs are also places that we can enjoy. And we don't have to be scuba divers to do that. We can simply enjoy them from adjacent areas. So like where we are right now, we are adjacent to this marine protected area. So all of this right here, there's actually two of them. So we are on the south end of Morro Bay, like I said, near the town of Los Osos. And the waters of Morro Bay actually make up two different marine protected areas. And what that basically means is there's just different levels of protection. So the one marine protected area that we can actually see back here doesn't look like much because there's not much water, because it's an estuary. But you'll actually see the creeks flowing into the bay from this perspective, which is pretty cool because there's actually two creeks that flow in and make up Morro Bay. And then of course Morro Bay reaches the Pacific Ocean, just near the rock actually. There's a channel in between the Sandspit and Morro Rock, which is the entrance or exit to the Pacific Ocean, depending on whether you have high tide or low tide, whether the water is coming in or going out. So this marine protected area here, this is known as a state marine reserve. And that essentially means that there's no take whatsoever. So fully protected here. No take of cultural artifacts, no take of fish, no take of shells. And then further, where you can see most of the water, closer to the Sandspit, that is a State Marine Recreational Management Area, or SMRMA for short. And like it says in the name, recreation, which essentially is just a fancy word for play, right, is encouraged to play in these areas. And that goes for all MPAs. Again, these are much like underwater parks. And although you may not be a scuba diver or even a kayaker, maybe you just enjoy these beautiful areas walking on this boardwalk here. These places that are adjacent to these marine protected areas that allow us to enjoy the wildlife. Wildlife you might run upon are marine mammals, most definitely birds. And the really neat thing about birds is that when you see a wide variety of birds, so lots of different kinds of birds, this is known as biodiversity. And when we have more diversity in an ecosystem, it actually creates a healthier habitat. When we have different kinds of animals and they're able to interact with each other the way that they're meant to, it actually creates a healthier ecosystem. And so when we see birds, for us land lovers who like to enjoy the ocean from land, enjoy the beauty, and recreate near it or adjacent to it, when we see these birds, it's actually a really good sign, because birds are a really good indicator to the health of an area. When we see lots of different kinds of birds, it actually lets us know that that ecosystem is pretty healthy. Where their food is coming from, which is the ocean, there's a reason they're here. There's lots of food available to them. Good morning, Robert. Got a little lizard on the boardwalk here. Most likely a western fence lizard. No push-ups for us today. The push-ups, I've heard several things actually. Oh, maybe we've got a couple push-ups. I've heard not only is it a territorial thing, obviously I'm quite large compared to him, so he's being protective, but also thermoregulation. And this stance is probably a defense mechanism. But these animals also like to thermoregulate, meaning they just like to moderate their body temperature. Beautiful views here. So that's one of the creeks I was mentioning earlier, flowing into Morro Bay. You guys ever have that moment where you see something like this and it doesn't look real, almost looks like a piece of artwork or painting? I often get that with the estuary. All these little fingers. Flowing out into Morro Bay's waters. There's the town of Los Osos. I know a lot of Los Osos residents like to tune in. So hello, welcome if you're here. We've got the sand spit on the other side. And what's so neat about the sand spit is it's essentially just a narrow stretch of land. You can see the sand on there. And of course there's some vegetation as well. But this narrow stretch of land stretches all the way essentially to Morro Rock. And in between the sand spit and the rock there is a channel, so that's where the water flows to and from the ocean and Morro Bay. But for those of us who have ever seen pictures of the ocean or have visited the Pacific Ocean, it gets pretty wild, right? There's big waves. Over the past a couple months ago now, we had our king tides, right? The highest high tides of the year. A month ago or so, we had lots of rain here in California. A little bit of stormy, surgy waters. But check out this water here that we're looking at. This is definitely not wild or crazy. And a lot of that has to do with the sand spit. It actually helps to protect Morro Bay's waters, keeping them calm. In the morning, oftentimes, it just looks like a mirror. You can see reflections of the sand spit and the rock. So the sand spit helps to protect Morro Bay's waters from ocean currents and weather, waves, and wind, which is excellent for wildlife. That's why we've got so much happy wildlife here. One of many reasons. And like I mentioned before, this is an estuary as well. And an estuary is essentially where fresh water comes in. So we've got this fresh water here. I believe this creek right here is it's either Turi or Los Osos. For those of you that know, feel free to correct me. And then you can see one in the distance, and I believe that one's Choro Creek. So these two creeks flow in. These are both freshwater creeks, and they flow in to meet the Salty Sea. So an estuary is where freshwater meets up with the Salty Sea, forming what's known as brackish water. It's just a mixture of fresh and salty water. And estuaries are one of the most productive ecosystems in the world. I don't know if you can hear all the sounds around me, but I'm definitely not alone here. There's lots of wildlife, lots of happy, well-fed wildlife. Nancy is saying, will this replay? Just now tuning in from Los Osos. Hello, Nancy. Hello, Nancy from Los Osos. Just visited Elfin Forest for the first time in the last month, and she loved the 360 views. History, birds, and rare plants. Yeah, this is a really unique spot here. So I'm glad you were able to visit it in person. And yes, Nancy, this will be on our Facebook page, so at Morro Bay State Parks, which I believe is probably where you're watching this now, because I think it's the only place at the moment. But you can also re-watch this on our YouTube page. So for those of you, I know lots of us have friends and family who don't use Facebook. So for those that are interested in watching these MPA Mondays, these strolls along the San Luis Obispo coast, you can also watch them on our YouTube page at San Luis Obispo Coast District. And I will be putting these MPA Mondays up every time I do them. Usually to give it about 24 to 48 hours, depending on my workload that week. And it will definitely be up on YouTube. And we can also connect there as well. So any of you out there, any of your friends and family that choose to watch it on YouTube instead, you can put comments and questions on there, and we can connect there as well. Robert is asking, are mountain bikes allowed in that area? On this trail, I do not believe there are any mountain bikes allowed. I do know that over here, which you can't see super well, you can see a bit of the hills there. Just beyond that is Montaña de Oro State Park, which is the furthest south park in our district. And there are mountain biking trails there. Not all of them are allowing mountain bikes, but a lot of them do. I know Oates Peak in particular is a really popular one. And I believe Hazard Peak as well. Marilee says, my sister is in Los Osos. Happy Monday from Georgia. Happy Monday, Marilee. I'll have to see if there's any marine protected areas around that area. I'm not very familiar with any other marine protected areas other than the ones we've got here in California. But they do exist all around the world. So for those of you not tuning in from California, check out where your local MPAs are, even if it's your closest coast, maybe along the East Coast or along the Gulf of Mexico. Marilee says she just sent, her sister had just sent her photos from Elfin Forest. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I don't think we'll actually be able to make it into the canopy, which I believe is just over here. As you go further in that direction, you go through these beautiful, gnarly, wild oaks. And it's absolutely gorgeous. But every time I go in there, I have absolutely no connectivity. For those of you who've seen me here before, it's probably several months ago now. It was not a great presentation because I was not able to present anything. You guys weren't able to see anything. So maybe we can put some pictures in or maybe do a pre-recorded video in the future, just because connectivity doesn't work with that beautiful canopy. Nancy says, good to know there are replays. I love your MPA Mondays. I learned so much. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. That's really sweet. Of course, I'd love to have you all here. Not entirely feasible because, of course, not all of you are local. But this is the best that we've got right now. So I think someone actually recommended checking out Elfin Forest. So definitely put it on my radar to check it out again, even though it wasn't very successful the first time. But for those of you who are interested in certain areas, and I'm able to access those areas, I'm happy to go check them out. I love these virtual hikes, sharing these beautiful views with all of you. And I definitely learn a lot doing these as well. I learn a lot from all of you, all of your great questions. And usually we're pretty lucky. Weather always seems to be pretty great on Monday. Occasionally we'll get rained out and I'll have to cancel, but it's usually some pretty amazing views. Hopefully you all can hear the choir of wildlife around me. See if we can zoom into some of the shorebirds out here. Don't think that will zoom in at all. But there's a lot of wildlife, not only behind me, in the shrubbery, but also out in the estuary. I believe these right here, it's hard for me to see them, and I know it's definitely hard for you to see them, but you can see those big 3 white blobs. I believe those are white pelicans. Yeah, those are definitely not egrets, because they're pretty large, and I can see them from this distance. White pelicans are pretty cool. For those of you who've seen pelicans, you most likely have seen brown pelicans before. Brown pelicans are the most common, especially along the west coast. Mexico, I believe all the way up to Washington. And they're actually the smallest of the pelican species. I believe there's about 6 or 7 pelican species in the world. And the brown pelican is the smallest, with a 6-foot wingspan. So imagine someone you know, or maybe you yourself are 6 feet tall. A wingspan that is your height from wingtip to wingtip is the brown pelican. Now again, that's the smallest of the pelicans, and the white pelican, which is the one that we can barely see out there, those 3 white blobs, those go up to about 10 feet. They are like baby dinosaurs, essentially. They have a 10-foot wingspan. So whenever you get to see them, it's pretty cool. Just imagining how they're able to even fly. Yep, those are definitely white pelicans. Try to zoom in again. Not that that will do much good. But they're all white except for the plumage on the bottom, and I believe tip of their wing is black. And we don't see them all year round typically here in Morro Bay, but we do see them often. This last year was a bit odd actually, because we saw them the majority of the year, which is pretty cool. Again, this estuary, again, it's one of the most productive ecosystems in the world. So, of Got a vulture flying right here. So it provides lots of yummy nutrients. So we're happy to have these white pelicans here. Robert is asking, is it very windy there today? Or Cindy's asking, is it very windy there today? It's not super windy, it's got a slight breeze. It's really nice actually. The sun's really warm. With just a slight breeze. Oh, Marilee has put in what I believe is a link to marine protected areas on the East Coast, or maybe near Georgia. I'll definitely click on that later. Thank you for that, Marilee. That'll be fascinating. And Robert is asking, what road is in the background? I believe you're talking about this road here. Let's see if I can find my finger. There it is. This road here, you can maybe see some cars along it. That is South Bay Boulevard. So that's the road that you would take to get from Morro Bay, the town of Morro Bay, which is just over here. These trees actually make up the Morro Bay State Park. I may be able to see a little bit of bright green in the distance there. That's the golf course. And that road that runs along the south end of here, which you can't really see, is State Park Road, which runs right into South Bay Boulevard. And you can take that south towards the town of Los Osos, which is behind me. Some interesting calls out in the estuary that I can't actually identify. I'm not sure if any of you can hear them. Definitely some sort of shorebird. So super cool to have these marine protected areas right here, able to protect this beautiful wild space, and to be able to have these amazing trails here. You can see this beautiful boardwalk, very accessible for strollers, wheelchairs, allowing more individuals to enjoy these amazing views. Not only the sights, but if you can imagine the smells. It's very fresh smelling, beautiful breeze on the skin. And of course these sounds, which I'm hoping that you guys can all pick up. Marilee says, we spent many weekends at the state park waiting for my parents to finish playing a round of golf. At least you had a beautiful place to wait around for. I want to thank you all so much for joining me again for another MPA Monday. Again, feel free to share this with anybody you think would be interested. For those non-Facebook users, definitely check out San Luis Obispo Coast District on YouTube. It's a long name, I know, but it's San Luis Obispo Coast District. And I'll be putting these MPA Mondays up there, almost like an archive. You can always turn back to these if there's something you wanted to see. Maybe there's a time of year that you wanted to see what it looked like. Decide to come camping here this time next year. You can refer to these videos and get an idea of what the seasons look like throughout the San Luis Obispo coast. Jean says, thank you so much for the great tour of this beautiful area. Thank you, Jean, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Do a last little overview of this gorgeous view. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Make sure to tune in for another MPA Monday, usually every Monday. You can find it on a Facebook event, usually beforehand, to see where we'll be visiting. And if you do have any recommendations on where you'd like to go, go ahead and put them in the comments here on Facebook or on our YouTube page at San Luis Obispo Coast District. I hope you all have an absolutely beautiful day. Get outside, get some vitamin D, some fresh air. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and most importantly, stay kind.